Instead, in their geta, in their bulge, in their shreds, while the dini raw and five, oh, you tihia ta falu, agus tihia ta treke, agus Lyrian sunray ta ishig and rentihiak, that now will fihi hin jontas, tarni and the west fin jontas, ahori at tihia falu, la diengalai. Niel few when jontas away, tarni and the west of Mahonda Hain and Gunanal, agus sample ele da and doi a live shell and real to show, Gulor Kanche, Akniel Natari la fekel. Minister, this week Darrell O'Brien published his housing progress report, and he needn't have bothered because the progress has been glacial. Because the reality is that your party and Fine Gael have created the housing crisis, and the longer that you remain in office, the worse the things get for ordinary people. And that's the reality of the situation. All of the schemes that you've introduced are failing to meet their own targets. And Darrell O'Brien's housing report was notable for the complete absence of information in relating to one of the schemes, in particular, the vacant property refurbishment grant. And it's little wonder why. Because the details of this scheme published separately by the department are staggering. In the past 18 months, only 21 grants have been drawn down from the government's flagship scheme. That's 21 grants in 18 months, Minister. Right throughout the state, in our cities, in our towns, in our villages, people are all too aware of the scourge of dereliction and of vacancy, something that grates all the more as people face a deepening housing crisis. Yet despite this, despite the tens of thousands of vacant properties that blight our cities, our towns and our villages, this is a scheme that is completely failing to turn vacant properties into homes for workers and families. When it was launched last year, 18 months ago, Darrell O'Brien hadn't even engaged with mortgage lenders. What was the result? As a result of that, applicants weren't able to draw down mortgages on their grants until the issues with the banks were being resolved 1 year later. The scheme has also been criticised, Minister, by applicants as the grant is paid in arrears. And for many of them, and I'm sure you've got the same type of correspondence as we all in this House have got, many of these simply do not have the money, don't have the cash up front to be able to pay for the works. The scheme is also chronically underfunded, with an annual target of bringing between 400 and 600 homes into use as a result of the money that you allocated towards the scheme. But there is an alternative, Minister. Sinn Féin put forward a more ambitious proposal that would bring vacant and derelict properties back into use through the increased use of capital funding to local authorities. We want to see up to 4,000 vacant and derelict properties a year brought into use for social and affordable housing. And government must be far more ambitious when it comes to tackling dereliction and vacancy. In my own home county of Donegal, it's one of the worst that's affected by dereliction in the state, and yet not a single grant has been paid out under the government scheme 18 years on. It's as if there's no crisis here. 18 years on, not a single grant in Donegal, and only 21 grants across the state. Minister, in your own home county of Cork, not a single grant has been paid out in the city or in the county, despite widespread dereliction in County Cork and in Cork City, and the very visible campaign there to highlight and address it. So like so many of your housing policies, you've been caught trying to pull the wool over people's eyes, launching a scheme with much fanfare, talking it up, but completely failing to deliver. And that's been the hallmark of Darrell O'Brien's tenure: all talk, no action, plenty of bluster. So will you now accept that the vacant property grant, as currently administered, is not fit for purpose and in need of a review and overhaul? And will you now take on board Sinn Féin's proposal to ensure that we have a proper plan to tackle vacancy and dereliction, and that it's put in place so that it delivers not tens of homes, as is your plan, or hundreds of homes, but thousands of homes that are badly needed for workers and families throughout the state? That's what's needed. That's the level of ambition. That's the proposal that we have put forward. That's the funding that we have sought in terms of the alternative budget. That's what's needed for families and workers across the state.
Minister, please.
Thank you very much, Deputy Doherty, for raising this issue. And I think when it comes to the housing challenge that we face, we can all agree that the best way of making progress is to increase the supply of all types of homes, of public homes in the form of social housing, cost rental, affordable purchase, and also private supply. And thankfully, when we look at the overall picture, we are making progress in terms of output, and that is because the government is prioritising investment in housing. Next year we will provide about €5 billion of capital through direct exchequer capital, the lending by the Housing Finance Agency, and also the contribution of the Land Development Agency. And all of that work is contributing to a situation where by the end of this year now, this government will have delivered about 100,000 homes since 2020. So coming from where we have been in terms of the supply of new homes, we are definitively making progress. Nearly 30,000 new homes were completed last year, and that was a 45% increase on the level of output in 2021. We had setbacks during COVID, we had shutdowns of the construction industry, but thankfully we have recovered strongly from that. And that momentum last year has continued into this year. Over 22,000 homes were completed in the first 9 months of 2023. That's a 9% increase year on year. And when we look at the data around planning permissions, commencements and completions, we do see the continuation of a positive trend. In the 12 months to the end of September, about 31,500 homes were completed. So we will achieve the Housing for All target of 29,000 units in the current year. We will probably come in north of 30,000 units in this year, and the state will be the central actor in terms of delivering the new homes that we need across our country. And of course, we always recognise the need to do more, because we have a growing population. Ireland is an attractive country where people want to come and live and work. They see employment opportunities here, and they see a very good quality of life as well. In relation to the Croí Cónaithe Towns Fund and the two schemes that the Deputy has referred to, the vacant property refurbishment grant and the ready to build scheme, these schemes have proven to be very popular. And when I look at the data so far, over 4,800 applications have been submitted to date, and over 2,200 have actually been approved. So there's a lot of activity underway, and a lot of applications are in the system, have been approved, and the work is underway. And of course the Minister will be open to any opportunities to improve the operation of the scheme. This is a new scheme, and it is definitely proving popular, and many people are looking to it as a means of bringing a vacant home back into use, or indeed of tackling dereliction. And the Minister will be engaging with the local authorities and indeed with applicants to get the feedback and to make sure that any issues that have arisen in terms of the operation of the scheme are being addressed over the period ahead. He has already improved the scheme significantly. I think it's important to acknowledge that by, for example, changing the eligibility date of vacant and derelict properties from 1993 to ones built up to and including 2007, and also increasing the grants from 30,000 to 50,000 in the case of vacancy, and in the case of dereliction from 50,000 to 70,000 euro. So this is a good scheme, and the Minister will ensure that it does work properly and that it has the desired effect of bringing vacant and indeed derelict properties back into use to provide homes for individuals and families into the future.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Doherty.
Ministers, this scheme was announced a year and a half ago. In the middle of a housing crisis, at a time, just let me remind you again, at a time when house prices continue to rise across the state, at a time when rents in my own county and many other counties have increased by double digits, 20% in my county, and at a time when we've never had the highest levels of homelessness, a year and a half on, in the middle of a housing crisis, 21 grants have been drawn down. None in the entire county of Cork or Cork City, none in Donegal, and none in many other counties across the board. Why? Because the scheme is flawed in the way it has been implemented. And it's not just those targets that you're missing. In relation to all the targets that Darragh O'Brien is responsible for, he misses them over and over again. Affordable housing, he was supposed to deliver 3,500 this year. 6 months in, it's 123 is the number that's delivered. Social housing, 9,100. 6 months in, it's 1,400. Likely to miss those targets again this year, as he's missed every single year since he's been a minister. And the vacant home refurbishment grant is popular. People want this. But the administration of the scheme, just like the way that the government announced this without even talking to the banks, has meant that people are not able to draw down the money in a timely manner. So will you accept that your targets are woefully inadequate? Will you accept that you need to do far more? And listen to what Sinn Féin have said, not talking about hundreds, but we need 4,000 vacant and derelict homes brought back into housing stock every single year for the next number of years.
Minister.
Thank you, Deputy. I think the evidence shows that the scheme is not only popular, but it is working. When you consider over 2,200 applications have actually been approved. So that will lead to properties that are currently vacant or currently derelict coming back into use and being lived in by individuals and by families. And the government will continue to support this scheme, will continue to provide the necessary funding to ensure that the scheme meets its potential into the future. And it's important that we do hear the feedback where there are issues arising in relation to the operation of this scheme. Those issues will be taken on board and will be addressed to make sure it is as efficient as possible in its administration. And I think the Deputy should have the good grace to acknowledge that this is a good scheme. And this will bring a lot of homes that are currently empty back into use. And it's only one part of a policy toolkit that we have. We also have the vacant homes tax. We have just received the first set of returns in relation to that tax. And as soon as I have the data in relation to that, I will publish that data as well, because that's another tool that we have to bring vacant stock back into use.
Deputy Duncan-Smith, please.
Thank you, Count Corlin. It's good to see further debate on vacancy and dereliction. We did a Labour Centre's motion in the Shannon last night on it, but I would like to focus on transport and the lack of funding and the systemic issues we have with our transport infrastructure in terms of capacity and both the supply of services, Minister. We've packed buses, we've packed train carriages, we've chronic delays in congestion, we've poor driver behaviour on the road as a result. This crisis is felt countrywide. I experience it myself and see it myself every day of the week, living and representing a commuter constituency in Dublin. Since the return of full-capacity public transport routes after COVID-19, we've seen growing demand for public transport. But your government is failing those that want to choose the sustainable option. We know from the National Transport Authority's own statistics that in just September alone of this year, there was a 10% growth of people using bus services, going from 800 to 900,000. The public are clamouring for green, climate-friendly and affordable transport routes. One of the key drivers for Ireland to achieve our climate targets will be how well we can implement a comprehensive public transport system, not just in Dublin, not just in Cork, but across the entire country. We've heard in the past weeks in statements from the RSA about how many people in rural Ireland are being pushed to learn how to drive, not just because they want to, but because they have no other option. The reality is this government is failing to deliver on transport infrastructure, and it's resulted in people in rural Ireland knowing that if they want to get to work or to socialise or something as simple as going to their nearest shop, they need to have a car for there's no public transport option. It's deeply concerning to me that when we finally got to a stage where the plans are there to provide large, big transport infrastructure, we now hear from the NTA Chief Executive Anne Graham on Tuesday about increasing delays due to a huge hole in the transport infrastructure budget caused by inflation. For example, she said that the real value of the active travel programme has been reduced in real terms from €290 million to €190 million. Meanwhile, Exchequer figures to the end of October also show the Department of Transport had failed to spend €209 million of approved capital expenditure. So the budget committed for project has not kept pace with inflation and the pressures of our growing population and economy, while the department isn't spending the money it already has. Your government is dragging its heels on delivering the type of transport infrastructure projects we need by failing to commit enough spending. And the hole in the accounts will build year on year if this is not addressed. It will affect critical transport projects such as Metrolink that my own constituents have been waiting decades for, not to mention the millions of passengers using Dublin Airport, Lewis for Cork and indeed Bus Connects. So Minister, the questions I have for you today are this. Will the government admit that there now simply isn't enough long-term funding for transport projects in the current National Development Plan? What plans are there to account for inflation so that projects will not be needlessly killed off in favour of adding another few million to the Minister's Rainy Day Fund? What are you doing about it? And can you commit now today that there won't be any further delays to Metrolink or Bus Connects or the many active travel projects across the country waiting for spending commitments?
Thank you, Deputy Smith. Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Smith, for raising these important transport issues in the House this afternoon. And I am happy to defend the government's record in terms of investment in transport of all forms across our country over the last number of years, and I think that is evident for anyone to see when you look at the investment in active travel, the expansion of public transport services and the investment in our road network, just to name a few examples. In the budget a number of weeks ago, we provided an overall allocation to the Department of Transport of over €3.5 billion to provide vital services to the public across next year, and that represents an increase of €90 million on gross expenditure levels in 2023. The Deputy will be well aware of what the government has done so far in terms of public transport fares, the 20% reduction in average fares, the 50% reduction indeed for younger people, and we've expanded in the recent budget the eligibility cohort that will be in a position to avail of that, and that has resulted in a very significant increase in the number of people using our public transport services, and that's a good thing because it shows that where services are provided, where the fares are reasonable, that the public will respond because they want to be able to avail of a good quality, efficient service, and they do want to get away from the gridlock that we have seen and continue to see on some of our road networks. We are investing €360 million a year on active travel, and I think all of us as constituency TDs have seen examples of fantastic greenway projects, improved pedestrian facilities, cycling facilities and infrastructure in our communities, which have given a huge tourism boost as well and enhanced the leisure amenities available in communities right throughout the country. We are fully committed to a wide range of major public capital transport projects. Many of them are going through the approval process, are currently in the planning system. We await the outcome of the planning system, but the government has signalled its full commitment to the implementation of those projects because our population is growing, our economy is growing, the need is clear, and we do need to invest further in public transport in Dublin and indeed around the country in the form of sustainable transport corridors, the Bus Connects project, the major Metrolink project, the DART projects that we have. The government is committed to them. We have made the decision, as the Deputy will be aware, to increase over the coming years the overall public capital programme using some of the windfall corporation tax receipts of €2.25 billion, and of one of the funds that we are going to set up provides for a dedicated infrastructure climate and nature fund whereby over €3 billion of additional funding is earmarked for projects including public transport that will help us to achieve our emissions reductions targets. So we're fully committed to implementing the ambitious plans that we have in terms of public transport.
Deputy Smith.
Minister, the fare reduction is welcome and we need to see more. But the fare reduction is useless if A, the public transport doesn't exist, B, it's bringing people to a route that's already congested, so they're missing buses or being left behind. And giving increased funding to the Department of Transport when they're not spending the money they already have, I mean, it is more or less pointless. The Irish, and this isn't just us saying, the Irish Fiscal Advisory Council has warned that capital spending will need to be on average €2.7 billion a year, higher than it is now, from 2024 to 2030. And I know you mentioned the Infrastructure, Climate and Nature Fund. Is this going to be like a bailout fund for these infrastructure projects? And that's not going to be drawn down until after 2026 either. So there's a massive incongruity to your entire transport capital project plan. So, look, we need to ensure, you say you're committed to Metrolink, are you going to commit the funding to deliver Metrolink? Are you going to commit the funding to deliver Bus Connects? Are you going to deliver funding to deliver the Lewis connections in Dublin and Cork?
Minister.
The answer is yes, Deputy, we are, and we stand behind the public transport projects that are a fundamental part of the National Development Plan, which I prepared on behalf of government and got the approval of government for. And that sets out a plan worth €160 billion out to the end of the decade. We acknowledge, of course, the impact of inflation in recent years, and the Deputy is right to highlight that. We've all seen the inflation in tender prices. We're well aware of the impact of the war in Ukraine in terms of construction materials inflation, and that has had an impact. And we are seeing the work through of that in some of the tender prices that are coming in. But that is why the government has made the decision to allocate additional funding using some of the windfall corporation tax receipts to ensure that we fully stand behind our National Development Plan objectives and our priorities. And the Infrastructure, Climate and Nature Fund provides real funding that will be there for projects once they come through the statutory planning process. So the government is fully committed to the projects that the Deputy has highlighted and looks forward to implementing them as soon as the projects are fully approved and go through the necessary procurement processes.
Thank you very much, Minister. We move now to Solidarity People Before Profit. Deputy Richard Boyd Barrett.
Minister, this Saturday at 1 o'clock in Parnell Square, I hope and expect that there will be tens of thousands of people assembling to march in solidarity with the people of Gaza and Palestine as they face the horror that is being inflicted on them by the State of Israel. And one of the questions they are going to be asking, and I'm asking you, is how many Palestinians does Israel have to massacre? How many atrocities do they have to commit? How much evidence do you need that Israel is engaged in a genocidal attack on the people of Gaza and increasingly people in the West Bank before you will do something, before you will take any action whatsoever to sanction this murderous regime for the slaughter it is inflicting on thousands and thousands of Palestinians? On the 18th of October, you had a motion, the government had a motion, talking about Israel's right to self-defence. At the time, we put forward a motion and argued that Israel was not engaged in anything to do with self-defence, but it was continuing and accelerating a genocidal attack to reinforce its system of apartheid, its system of occupation, and its ongoing war crimes and ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. We called at the time for the expulsion of the ambassador, for the prosecution of Israel for war crimes, and for other sanctions. At that time, we got 7 votes. 7 votes. Last night, 55 deputies in here voted to expel the Israeli ambassador, to sanction Israel, to refer them for war crimes and for genocide, but still you voted against. Now, could you please explain to me what level of atrocity Israel has to commit, how many babies they have to murder, how many hospitals they have to bomb, how many houses they have to bomb, how many people they have to ethnically cleanse before you think it will be time to impose the sort of sanctions that you were very quick to impose on Russia for Putin's invasion of Ukraine? Are Palestinian babies and lives less valuable than those of Ukrainians that you don't feel it is justified in the face of this slaughter to sanction them for the crimes they are committing? Please explain to me and to the thousands who have been on the streets and who will be on the streets again this Saturday how you can justify inaction in the face of slaughter and massacre.
Minister, please.
Thank you, Deputy Barrett. And look, we can all agree that the scenes we are witnessing on television and on our social media feeds are simply shocking. I find it very hard to watch the news these days, to be frank with you. Tomorrow is the 9th birthday of Emily Hand, a beautiful young child who is being held captive, we believe, by Hamas in Gaza. Our Taoiseach is in the Middle East, as you know, right now, putting in the hard yards and the hard work of international diplomacy, trying to make progress in securing the passage of the remaining Irish citizens who are in Gaza. and also advocating for peace and having many difficult conversations with those that he needs to talk to on behalf of the Irish Government to advocate for peace and to advocate for a ceasefire, because the humanitarian situation that we are witnessing in Gaza is simply appalling. Israel has a right to defend itself. What Hamas did on the 7th of October is unspeakable, and the Taoiseach is witnessing and visiting some of the sites where those massacres by Hamas took place. But Israel, in defending itself, has to act in accordance with international humanitarian law. And Ireland has been very consistent and very clear, the Taoiseach, the Taoiseach, the entire government in relation to that. And on the cause that we should expel the Israeli ambassador, international diplomacy and maintaining channels of communication is not about staying close to your friends or about endorsing policies. It's about keeping channels open for when you need them. And we need them, because in trying to secure the safe access out of Gaza of the remaining Irish citizens there, and in trying to be heard in advocating for peace, it's important that we continue to communicate and we continue to have dialogue with all of those in the region. And we've about 400 peacekeepers, Irish men and women, in the region. So Ireland has to maintain diplomatic relations with Israel. But we also will call out, when we see it, the level of force that has been used, in our view, is completely disproportionate. Civilians should be protected. Gaza and Hamas are not the same thing. The civilians in Gaza should not be the subject of collective punishment by the Israeli Defence Force. So Ireland is an important actor. We have a voice. We are being listened to. And I believe that our Taoiseach, who is there at the moment, deserves the steadfast and the fulsome support of everyone in this House in what he is seeking to achieve, advocating for peace, trying to secure the release of all the hostages, the secure passage of the remaining Irish citizens from Gaza through the Rafah crossing into Egypt. And he's having those difficult conversations right now in the Middle East.
You
see, you're still doing it. You're still talking about Israel's self-defence. Apartheid, because that's what the Israeli system is, doesn't have a right to defend itself, any more than apartheid South Africa did. Illegal occupation doesn't have the right to defend itself. Ethnic cleansing, or a state built on ethnic cleansing, doesn't have a right to defend itself. The people who have the right to defend themselves are the people who are victims of those things. Who are the victims? Who are the oppressed here? The Palestinians are. They're the ones being ethnically cleansed. They're the people at the wrong end of apartheid. They're the one under illegal occupation. They're the ones who've been killed with impunity for years and years and years. They've been killed on the West Bank where there's no Hamas. Why do you continue to peddle the notion that Israel is interested in peace, when everything it's doing is making it clear it's involved in massive terrorist ethnic cleansing to drive the Palestinians out of Gaza, out of the West Bank, to expand the borders of Israel, as it's been doing every single year since 1948. When is the world going to wake up with this? And you didn't answer me. Why did you impose, even setting aside the ambassador, why sanctions on Putin for his war crimes, but nothing, no sanction whatsoever, ever imposed on Israel, even when they're slaughtering thousands and thousands of children?
Deputy, please. Minister.
Thanks, Deputy. The government is supporting the people of Palestine. We are providing funding. This week the government announced additional funding as well for the International Criminal Court. The Taoiseach announced €13 million in funding in humanitarian assistance to the Palestinian people, with 10 million to UNRWA and 3 million for the UN OCHA. So we are providing direct practical support for the people of Palestine. And we've been very clear in what we have been calling for some time now. And we are seeing more and more EU countries and other jurisdictions coming to the view that Ireland has been espousing, that there should be a complete and immediate humanitarian ceasefire. The guns should stop and the bombs should stop. The only way ultimately to achieve peace here is through dialogue. We know all about this on our own island, Deputy. We know our history. And Ireland is a respected voice on this issue because of our own historical experience on this island. So we are continuing to work through all of those channels. We are glad that 23 Irish citizens left Gaza yesterday through the Rafah crossing. We expect that more will be in a position to do so today. We want to see the release of all the hostages, including little Emily Hand and all of the others.
Now, on behalf of the regional group, Deputy Peter Fitzpatrick, please.
Minister, the number of homeless people in Louth and the North East continues to climb, with 185 people accessing emergency accommodation in the North East, 163 of them in Louth. Along with investment in housing, we must further invest in our homeless charities through both government and local authority support. Homeless charities picked up the pieces where insignificant government funding has failed, providing a crucial service to the community. For example, Save Our Homeless charity in Dundalk is dedicated to helping people experience homelessness and aiding people and families experiencing financial hardship. It does amazing work within my constituency, yet they are dependent on the generosity of the public and local businesses to do their work. 3 in 10 charities, 31%, did not receive any state funding in 2021. Over half of these charities has annual income of less than $50,000, and 72% were volunteers only, meaning they had no paid staff. Pobble administrates and manages government and EU funding through the Community Service Programme to address disadvantage and support social inclusion and equality. The company supports 400 charities in the Republic. This is commendable, but the number of charities is growing to meet the growing needs of our people. This year, after a lengthy Community Service Programme application process by 197 charities, those volunteers jumped through the hoops to make the application. Less than half successfully progressed to the second stage, which means only a handful of charities would likely access more needed wages for the funding for the first time. There was an urgent need to provide adequate and sustainable multi-annual funding to the homelessness sector. This funding should reflect the full cost of service delivery, including wage funds for charity management and government management, as well as flexible funding to meet increasing needs and inflation. The reason wage funding is important is because in 2022, 648,000 people volunteered with an Irish charity and contributing at least $1 billion worth of time. About 76,000 people who volunteered are also charity trustees who are directly responsible for overseeing the operation and governance of the charity. With an expectation that every euro raised should go into the delivery of frontline services, this put board members at a serious disadvantage, especially in terms of time and resources when it comes to regulatory, governance and compliance requirements. There were no supports to maintain such government skill sets. On top of this, charities often hold no reserve or carry unfunded deficits from one year to the next. Will you, Minister, recognise the central of funding concerns across the community and volunteering sector, with the precarious financial situation in various charity organisations? There was an urgent need to provide adequate and sustainable multi-annual funding to the homeless sector, reflecting the full cost of delivery, including wage funds and inflation. Thank you.
Deputy Fitzpatrick, and I want to join with you and take the opportunity in thanking all of the volunteers who work with homeless charities and the services that they provide, and we thank them for their work. They provide a very, very valuable service and support. When it comes to public funding and the state's response to homelessness, it is important that we ensure there is proper coordination of the response of different bodies that are operating throughout the country. And while responsibility for the provision of accommodation for homeless persons rests with individual housing authorities, the administration of homeless services is organised on a regional basis throughout the country. So we have 9 administrative regions currently in place, and County Louth is included in the North East region for the purpose of homelessness administration, with Louth County Council designated as the lead authority for the region. So if there are particular charities that feel they should be getting some support or more support from the state, it is best that that case would be made through the relevant administrative region that is in place. And in the case of your own county, your own local authority is the designated body in that respect. In overall terms, The budget a few weeks ago provided funding of €242 million to be made available for the delivery of homeless services in 2024, and that is a 12% increase on 2023. It will ensure that local authorities can provide essential emergency accommodation, homeless prevention and tenancy sustainment services as well, including Housing First, which I know has been very successful, and I've seen many examples of it myself in practice, and also other services to households experiencing or indeed who are at risk of homelessness, and that work is so important. The total number in emergency accommodation in your own region, in the North East region, is 185 adults, with 34 families and 83 children. During Q3 of this year, a total of 41 households exited emergency accommodation in County Louth. That's an increase of 95% exiting homelessness on the previous quarter, while during the same period, 40 households were prevented from entering emergency accommodation by way of a tenancy being created, and that's an increase of 25% on the previous quarter. So a lot of good work is being done by the local authority, and I do want to acknowledge that work and thank them for it. But if we can improve on the services, if we can improve on the level of coordination or improve on the level of support available for those who are on the front line engaging with homeless people, then I'm sure Minister O'Brien would be very, very open to that proposal.
Minister, Deputy Fitzpatrick.
So I have good time for you. You do listen to people and you do react. And you came to County Louth there last week there over the flooding. But Minister, I'm a wee bit concerned with your answers. I thought maybe you might give me more of a personal answer. Minister, we have a Save Our Homeless charity in Dundalk. We're doing an absolutely fantastic job. And I will put my hands up. The Louth County Council in the homeless sector do a fantastic job as well. But we do have concerns, Minister. And the questions I want to ask you, Minister, how are charities supposed to meet the very high bar set by the charity regulator in terms of governance and compliance reliable, as well as combat the rise in demand if the funding for staff and resources are not there? Hire volunteers to engage and assist people in financial poverty if the charity holds no reserve or carry unfunded deficits from one year to another, and hire charities to help people get back to work via community employment schemes. Minister, I know firsthand, Minister, the amount of people, homeless people come into me, Minister, and these are people who fell in the bad times. And only for the likes of Save Our Homeless and the Louth County Council we've been serious problems. Minister, I'm going to ask you, would you consider coming to Dundalk, meeting Save Our Homeless people, and you'll see the amount of work to do, Minister. And I'm telling you, Minister, this is not big money we're looking for, Minister. Most of these are volunteers, and all they're looking for is some kind of assistance from the government.
Thank you,
and Minister, one more time, Minister, will you please come to Dundalk and have a look at Save Our Homeless? And I'd be delighted to show you what a fantastic job they do.
Thank you very much. That's an invitation you can't resist.
Thank you very much, Deputy. And
yes or no?
well, I should give the line minister the opportunity to visit first.
Yes.
I don't want to be. The line minister should be given the opportunity first. But, I'm sure Minister O'Brien will come, and but I think we should have a chat offline in relation to the organisation that you've referred to, Save Our Homeless Dundalk. The information I have is that there isn't any record of an application for funding. Certainly the department isn't aware of any application for funding, so perhaps we can engage offline. I'd be happy to discuss it with you and provide any assistance that I can on the broader issue. And I know it's not related to the organisation that you've mentioned, but we can all agree on the importance of good governance and good financial controls wherever people in organisations are engaging with very vulnerable people and where taxpayers' money is being used. And I know that has no relation to the organisation that you raised. So I'd be happy to discuss it offline with you, Deputy, and to be of whatever assistance that we can.
Thank you very much. Leaders' questions for today.